Hello.
Hello.
We're back. We're better than ever, as we typically are every Friday.
Yes, we are starting a cult that's random. Jake. Mitch is in here. He's reading an old letter from David from the military, and he's fixing something with a knife.
Yeah, he's working on things. He's trying to make it work. Mitch, I believe in you back there. You're going to fix that piece of electronic.
You're going to do it.
Thanks. But we are back. It is the day after St. Patrick's Day 2022. So how about that for all you St. Patrick's Day lovers out there?
I bet you're all dehydrated and headachy.
Probably.
And, you feel bad.
Probably a little bit. Yeah, I won't lie. But
it's our people's culture.
The very, very, very good news is we are back with an episode as we typically are.
Yeah, on Fridays usually that's how we do it.
So we are here to tell you guys a little bit about a man named Mr. Cooper.
Yeah.
Not Cooper. The neighbor, not the mailman, but this guy specifically he's an interesting specimen, to say the least.
And it's not even Agent Dale Cooper. It's not even that guy.
No, it's not.
No.
And in interesting enough fashion, now tell me if I'm mistaken here, this may or may not be the very first episode we've ever done where the person in question, we don't even know their real name. Like, I mean, we don't have, like...
No, we did the Zodiac.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
All right, so it's the second version of this.
Yes.
The second time.
Now, to be fair, I mean, as much as we'd like to suggest very well that could have been his name. I don't know.
It could have been.
But chances are pretty high that it's not his real name.
Who knows who this guy is?
But we are talking about Mr. D.B. Cooper, the ultimate heister before the likes of GTA 5 when that was cool and everybody could do it.
So much buffoonery in the skies here.
This guy was a modern-day pirate. A pirate of the skies, if you will. He was Captain Jack Sparrow with a different meaning of the word sparrow. How about that?
He dressed way less cool than Jack. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a lot more, like, physically forgettable.
That may have been the point.
But, yeah, nonetheless, it really, really, really benefited him in many a different way.
It's true.
So how about that?
How about that, D.B. Cooper, right? All right, so he was widely known as the man that got away. Right, not like in a romantic sense.
Yeah, not the loving way. You know?
No, he wasn't very attractive from the composite, but rather he had a shit ton of money strapped to his body and he jumped out of a plane. Isn't that crazy? There's nothing really more I can say about the guy without just telling the story, though. So on November 24th of 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, right? Mid-40s Caucasian man wearing a black suit, black tie, white shirt, and carrying a black briefcase approached the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines in Portland International Airport. So like we said, just super nondescript clothing. He's just wearing a suit. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Clip-on tie, so I'm told. Which is just way easier. When was the last time you wore a clip-on tie?
I've honestly never, and I've always wanted to. That's why I can say I've never have.
Much easier.
I would very much be interested in a clip-on tie.
Yeah. Well, all right, so he had one of those. He purchased a one-way ticket to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport on Flight 305.
Okay.
And he just walks in, he orders a one-way. No reason for alarm. The flight was to take roughly 30 minutes in total, and he paid for his ticket in cash. A 30-minute flight. Do those even exist anymore?
I don't know.
Do you think?
Maybe like L.A. to Vegas, one of those flights? I don't know.
I don't know. You just drive.
Yeah, I mean, realistically...
It's literally like a 2-hour drive, probably.
That's something that I will say. I can only speak for, the Midwest, because that's what I'm familiar with. But pretty much anything under 5 hours is considered something you can tackle in a day. Yeah. And that considers both ways. Like, if you're going to go somewhere that's about 4 hours away, like, you could do that and come back to your home in that same day.
It'll be a long day.
Oh,
but it's totally doable,
But no, it can be done, and it's done pretty regularly. So the idea of a 30-minute flight, we're talking maybe 3 hours max of a drive.
That's what I'd say. Because, like, what do planes go at? Like 115, 120 miles an hour, something like that?
They go upwards of like 480 miles an hour.
Well, all right. I think I'm thinking of a later part in this story. But
yeah, this time that's true. At this point in time, I'm not entirely sure what their capabilities were?
Not sure. We've made a lot of aeronautic advancements.
Yeah, that is true. So
since 1971.
I don't claim to know that information.
Who knows? Also, the ticket was $20.
All right.
So who cares? Just fly. It's fun. The only reason that we have the name to impose on this man, right, D.B. Cooper, is the fact that he had to sign some sort of like document upon purchasing the ticket.
Uh-huh.
And he identified himself as Dan Cooper. Okay, just Dan Cooper.
Dan the man.
Yep. So
Dick Scooper.
Dick Scooper, huh? All right. All right, so once on the plane, which is a Boeing 727, he sat in the back and he ordered a bourbon and soda. Again, no reason for alarm. It's all just super chill and nice in the sky.
All right.
Weird thing about this flight the day before Thanksgiving, this plane was less than half full. It had 36 people on it with a crew of 6. Can you, when does that happen? The day before Thanksgiving?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's insane. That was the most mind-boggling part of this entire story to me.
That's the peak day for being lazy and traveling and maybe wrapping up some work you got to do.
Yeah. It's always just a nightmare. But, yeah, half capacity. There were 36 people on there, plus 6 people in the crew. So, sitting in the back of the plane, Cooper was kind of, he was removed from the rest of the passengers, all right? So he was kind of sitting by himself, just drinking bourbon and soda. The plane takes off at 2:50 p.m., all right? And it's raining all day. It's raining real hard, just so you know, just to get a little spectacle there in your mind. And shortly after they took off at 2:50, Cooper waves over 23-year-old flight attendant Florence Schaffner.
What a name.
Can you imagine a 23-year-old named Florence today?
No, I can't.
I can't either. I don't even know. I just think of Italy. But so he then gives her a piece of paper, a little folded piece of paper without a word. He doesn't say anything. And, assuming that it's a phone number or like a dirty note, Schaffner merely places the piece of paper in her purse, without looking at it. And seeing this, Cooper then says to her, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. So you're going to want to read what I've given you." Let's see. Wait a minute. And Schaffner then takes the note back out and sees that it says something to the effect of, "I have a bomb. I'd like you to sit next to me."
Please.
Which is a crazy series of things to say.
Please sit next to me.
It's like, wait, what was that? It was BTK. It was like, "I have a sex problem, and I'm not here to rob you." God, no. It has kind of the same effect of that. It's like, oh my God, I'd like you to sit next to me. I have a bomb. So the reason that we don't exactly know what this note said is because, Cooper claimed that he reclaimed the piece of paper. All right, he reclaimed the piece of paper. And let's be honest, Schaffner was probably too terrified in the moment to recall the exact wording, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, a little shock there. It's a bit. Even thinking of the word bomb on a plane seems insane now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. So she sits down next to Cooper, all right? And then eventually musters up the courage to ask to see the bomb. She's like, "Let's see this bomb you're talking about."
Let me prove it. Prove it.
Yeah, I don't see where it is. Why don't you whoop it out there? So Cooper then, he grabbed his briefcase, and he momentarily opened it, revealing 2 rows of 4 sticks of what is assumed to have been dynamite. And there was a bunch of wires all messy in there and a battery. It looked like a bomb. I would say it was probably a bomb.
All right.
But, after closing the case again, Cooper began informing Schaffner of his demands, which included $200,000 in, quote, negotiable American currency. And I did the, not exchange rate, the inflation rate on that, and that is roughly $1,401,066.67.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's a lot of money. And he wanted 4 parachutes. 4 of them, specifically. And a fuel truck ready in Seattle-Tacoma International Airport upon the plane's arrival. All right?
This guy's got a lot of fucking demands.
Yeah. He's just telling us to a 23-year-old Schaffner. Come on. Cooper then sent Schaffner up to the cockpit to relay his demands to the pilot, which she did. All right, and the pilot, William A. Scott, he contacted the air traffic control tower of Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, who then contacted authorities. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So then, as this was all happening, the passengers in the flight, they were told, the landing is going to be delayed. There's a little minor, technical difficulties. All right. Well,
Just
in reality,
minor.
yeah, just minor. But in reality, they were delaying the landing so the police and the FBI could gather all the requested items. So they were just negotiating with the terrorist immediately. And when Schaffner returned to Cooper, he was wearing dark sunglasses.
Hi, it's very bright in here. I can't see.
So I don't know if that's like a what's that crime show where the Who is the opening.
CSI.
It's like, yeah. It's like this badass moment. But all right, so he's getting all this money, he's getting all this stuff. Plane's delayed, landing's delayed, and the president of the airline, Donald Nyrop. Donald Nyrop. He authorized the payment of the $200,000 and told all the crew to fully cooperate with Cooper's other demands.
Fully cooperate.
You got to cooperate with this guy, he said. So after circling the airport for about 2 hours, during which time Cooper maintained a relaxed and even pleasant demeanor. Like he was like making small talk with the flight attendants. He was like,
Hold on.
You gotta have some food. What's Mitch doing over there?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I know this is super off topic here. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. So it's an electronic cigarette, right? That the charger is broken. So just Mitch being into electricity, I was like, here's the deal. I'm just gonna let him play with it and see what happens. And it is now nothing but string and just bolts, and he's trying to plug it in, and it's
just loose wires and connectors?
It's kind of wild looking. I'm not even going to deny that. It's a little fucking crazy. Anyway, we can continue. It's just I can't do this.
My knife came
He's going to go in the other areas
there.
to assemble.
Well, good Lord.
He's looking. What are you looking at me? All right, we'll be back in 45 milliseconds. All right, we're back. We had electronical questions.
Yeah.
That
you need the weed vape battery,
Funny enough, we actually didn't know any of the answers to electronical questions, so he was really asking the wrong people.
Yeah,
I was like,
we asked him because we thought he knew, but
he just took the experiment to the next level,
Yeah.
I respect it. I respect the hell out of it.
Well, back to Cooper, right? He's on the plane.
Yeah,
right?
back to the...
But Cooper is on the plane.
This is crazier than what's happening right now in our real lives.
Yeah, right.
This guy's fucking nuts.
So they're circling the airport. It's delayed. They're just like, it's technical difficulties. But no, they're trying to get all this money, all these gas trucks, and all these parachutes, right? So yeah, Cooper, he was there. He maintained a relaxed and pleasant demeanor while he was in the sky, right? He was like calmly making small talk with the flight attendants. He was requesting that food be provided for the crew upon their landing.
Okay.
He ordered another drink, and he was trying to tip them. He was like normal ass guy.
So fucking here, take some cash.
Take it all. And then the plane finally landed. All right, so the FBI had gathered the ransom money from several surrounding banks, documenting each bill via microfilm photograph. So they knew all the bills that they were giving him. And if any of them showed up, they were like, we're going to trace this. Right? Pretty smart. It was 10,000 unmarked $20 bills. Okay, so once the plane was on the ground, Cooper instructed the pilot to taxi the plane to a generally isolated part of the tarmac.
Ooh,
right?
Okay.
And it was kind of brightly lit, so it was nice, despite being in the rain. And to have all of the shades in the windows, to be pulled down so as to deter possible snipers.
Okay.
Smart idea. This guy has thought of everything. So, the operations manager of the airline, Al Lee.
Al E.
You just call him Allie,
Okay.
He arrived at the plane shortly after with a knapsack full of cash and the parachutes.
I love the idea of a knapsack full of cash.
It's just a weird word, knapsack.
I got a knapsack full of cash and fucking that's about it.
A knapsack.
That's cool. I mean, you got to carry it in something, and clearly what like at this point in the story, they're not going to give him a briefcase, right? It's like we know.
Well, no, he's already got a briefcase. That's got a bomb in it.
Exactly. So it's like we're not going to give him another one. Obviously, any rational person is going to be like something is going to happen. So let's just give him something very malleable, and maybe he'll fuck up. You know?
Yeah. There you go. Knapsack.
That's what I'm thinking.
Aren't the like cases usually named after what goes in them? Like briefcase, like it's for briefings for lawyers.
Yeah, it's a good question.
The hell is a nap with a K? What is that? You look that up?
A nap with a K. I'm looking for it.
What's a nap?
All right. Let's see.
Knapsack and parachutes.
All right,
knapsack and
I'm on the hunt for the knapsack.
All right. Well, once Cooper got all of these things, he allowed the passengers, Schaffner, and another flight attendant to exit the plane, right? So at this point, flight attendant Tina Mucklow asked Cooper if he had a grudge against the Northwest Orient Airlines. To which Cooper responded, "I don't have a grudge against your airline, miss. I just have a grudge."
Okay.
Very cryptic, I'd say. What's he got a grudge? Like the government, perhaps? I don't know. He probably knew the FBI would be involved. Who knows with this guy?
I found out what a nap is.
What's a nap?
There's a single definition for it, okay?
Yeah, is it a sack?
No.
That's ridiculous.
It's the crest of a hill.
Okay. All right, so we got some crests of hills in this sack here.
Yes.
All right, I'm burpy. All right. Well, refueling the plane was it was delayed a bit, right? Requiring not one but two additional fuel trucks to fill up, and they didn't anticipate that, so they like had one truck there. They were like, "That's not enough. We got to get another one here," and it took like 5 minutes, and then they got there, and they were like, "It's still not enough." It was just a whole big delay. All right. So while this seemed to make Cooper, a bit agitated, he maintained his composure.
Just a little agitated?
Just a little agitated. He's like, "This is taking too long."
Just a hiccup in my fucking grand scheme here.
He gave one of the notes. He gave a note to one of the flight attendants that was just like, "Let's get this show on the road." All right, so he maintained his composure. He went over a flight plan that he had with the remaining crew. All right.
Okay.
So, Cooper said that he wanted to set a course for Mexico City, going at the absolute slowest possible speed. This is where I was thinking of with the speed thing.
Speed.
Slowest possible speed. It was roughly like 115 miles an hour. And to coast at 10,000 feet. All right. So he also insisted that the landing gears be deployed at all times and the wing flaps be lowered 15 degrees and that the cabin not be pressurized. Which seems like a bad idea at 10,000 feet.
Okay.
But again,
I would agree.
I don't know anything about flying. I don't know anything. So he also requested that the rear exit door remain opened with its staircase extended during the takeoff of the flight and to remain like that. Though this was heavily advised against by the airline, saying that this was wildly unsafe, which that sounds about right. So Cooper heard this, and instead he decided that he could just lower it midair. And he got Mucklow to show him how to operate the door and staircase, right?
Yeah, and Mucklow is an interesting character. Funny enough, she's actually getting a movie based on her life.
What? She didn't even have much to do with this.
Yeah, but she was the one that had the most interaction with him personally. Like, during the situation,
Yeah, I mean, well, like, Schaffner was the initial one, but I guess, yeah, Mucklow probably had the most, like, downtime with him during the flight, And
it's more of like what I was reading, it's not like about her life. It's more about how the events of this day, like, altered her life. And the perspective and shit, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's interesting because there's a lot of testimony that follows just her and her interaction with the day.
Interesting.
And it makes sense, I guess.
It's probably like a 10-part series, like an hour each part. And at the end, it's just, I can't believe they haven't found him.
I'm almost confident, if I read it correctly, it's a movie.
What? It's like a cinematic thing?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's going to be like documentary style. I don't think so.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
All right, well, in any case, she like showed him how to operate the back door and staircase, right? So Cooper, he was then informed that with all of these very specific factors that, like, taken into account, all the things that he said he wanted the plane to do and all the states of things, the plane would need another refueling, another stop before entering Mexico. So he and the crew then decided together that the second refueling would take place at the Reno Tahoe International Airport. All right, so they're going to Reno. After Cooper got the goods, and the plan was all laid out, around 7:40 p.m., the 727 was back in the air.
Okay.
They're off. They're off. And now with only Cooper, flight attendant Mucklow, the 2 pilots, and a flight engineer. All right, so that's all who's on the plane. The FBI arranged for 2 F-106 fighter jets to shadow the plane.
Bad idea.
Maybe. Who knows? One was flying above, one was flying below. Maybe it's a good formation.
Yeah, the Mighty Ducks formation, the flying V.
Oh, yeah.
They're in like a vertical V.
And they're going south. It just makes so much... It's beautiful nature. Yeah. Well, Cooper and Mucklow were sitting together, in the passenger section, the cabin, if you will, of the plane, while the rest of the crew was in the cockpit. Cooper... Then, shortly after they took off, he told her to go, join her coworkers in the cockpit. Maybe get away from me, he said. And, it's, to make sure that the curtains were drawn at all times as well. He was like, you go up there and you don't look at me. All right?
Don't look at me.
You don't look at me, ever. So that was like 7:40, right? And around 8 o'clock, the crew in the cockpit saw a warning light come on. All right, indicating that the rear exit of the plane was open and the stairs were being lowered. So cooperating with Cooper's request that they all remain in the cockpit, the cabin intercom was used by the pilots to ask if Cooper needed any assistance.
Do you need any assistance?
Are you okay?
Mr. Badman with the bomb, do you need any help?
We'll get you another drink, yeah. So he picked, Cooper actually picked up the cabin phone, said, no, and was never seen or heard from again.
No.
No, that's the last thing anyone ever heard of him. So, some 2 or 3 hours later, the plane lands at the Reno Tahoe International Airport with the rear exit and stairs still deployed. All right, so FBI, state troopers, sheriff deputies, and the Reno police, they were all there on the ground ready to take over the situation. But they were maintaining a distance because, a bomb. There was a bomb there, theoretically. Theoretically, it may have just been hot dogs and wire. But after the crew was off of the plane and the pilots, they confirmed that Cooper was no longer on the plane. And the FBI bomb squad, after a 30-minute sweep, also confirmed that the bomb was gone as well. All right?
All right.
So everything's just gone. What they did find on the plane, however, were 66 unidentified fingerprints.
Ooh,
which is kind of interesting, but also, like, how often do you, clean every square inch of a plane?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, think about anything, even places that are highly disinfected and cleaned. There's going to be fingerprints.
There's going to be some fingerprints in there.
Like, if it's where people are at, that's part of the course.
They leave them all the time. Also bomb's gone. 66 unidentified fingerprints. Cooper's tie. The tie clip and the clip tie. They were also there.
Yes, they were.
And 2 of the 4 parachutes. One with its shroud lines missing. And that's just like the strings that attach it from the harness to the actual chute.
Yes, right? Yes, that is true.
It's true. The shroud lines were missing on one of the 2 that remained. So some speculate that these lines were missing. Indicates. Fuck. What is this sentence I wrote? Some speculate that these lines being missing indicates he may have used them to secure both the money and the bomb to his person before jumping out of the plane.
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
It was a trek, but we got there.
That was a trek, but we made it.
It was a trek. All right. So some of the FBI. The FBI, all right, they go to work on trying to find this guy, all right, or at least figure out who he was, at very least. So they took multiple eyewitness accounts and made up a composite sketch. Have you seen this composite sketch?
Yes.
He looks like the most normal man in the world.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like feisty, maybe like a short gangster. But other than that, it seems like he's just an accountant.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm looking at him right now, and then I like how they aged him as well.
Yeah.
He just looks the
They
same.
aged the composite sketch.
Yeah, he just looks exactly the
That's
same.
fun. Well, so then they started questioning possible suspects. The first man that they interviewed, his name was D.B. Cooper.
Ooh.
Okay, so he was quickly dismissed from the list of suspects after questioning because they were just like, it was not this fucking guy.
Yeah, you wouldn't
Like,
be that dumb.
definitely
You're,
not.
you're not that smart and stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, he was the FBI's best bet if it just so happened that this guy didn't use an alias. You know, they kind of had to talk to him. Strangely enough, it's this man's name rather than Dan Cooper, which is what the hijacker, claimed his name to be. This was the name that the news glommed onto. All right, all thanks to a journalist named James Long, who initially confused the eliminated suspect's name with that of the hijacker. So D.B. Cooper is not what he signed his name as. It was Dan Cooper. There was no B in there.
Okay.
All right, but James Long printed it, so now everyone just calls him D.B. Cooper.
Right, yeah. That makes sense. And interestingly enough, that it comes up later during. I mean, obviously, there's thousands of investigations, right? Like we know that.
There's a lot of stuff.
It's never ending, but they believe that it was an alias purposely used for the reason. I'm trying to. Yeah, here it is. It was an alias because in France. Well, not in France specifically, but it was written in French.
Okay.
But there was a Belgian comic series featuring the fictional hero by the name of Dan Cooper.
All right, that's kind of cool.
Who happened to be a Royal Canadian Air Officer test pilot.
Oh.
So it was. I mean, it could be nothing, but it was just a connection that was made for obvious reasons.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But there's no way of knowing if that's just a circumstance or what. But it is out there in the world.
Yeah, so D.B. Cooper is really just Dan Cooper, but even that's most likely not his name.
Yeah, probably not.
It's a small difference, but it's there. So authorities really had no idea where to start their search either. So the variables of when he jumped and how long after he jumped did he pull his chute, and in which direction did he go after pulling it is a pretty enormous area of possibility.
Oh, yeah.
As to where this guy could be. So somehow the FBI and the police figured out that the most likely place to search was around the southernmost part of Mount St. Helens, near like a multitude of lakes and rivers.
Okay.
Right. So search parties were sent out to comb the wilderness. Likewise, they were individually checking farmhouses, questioning the occupants. It's like, you had any people with a bunch of money fly into your barns lately?
Yeah, just a little bit.
That kind of
anything
thing
of the sort.
Anything like that. Maybe he might have a second parachute, a bomb. So the FBI even coordinated an aerial search, but even this, it garnered no results. All right. And after the winter months, because they were just like, maybe all we need is a good thaw, the FBI conducted another search, this time accompanied by 200 military, Army soldiers, and it lasted for 36 days, still nothing. Found absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but you can scour a lot of land and a lot of places with that much manpower and that much time.
Yeah.
Even if you think they're working we'll be extremely generous in their workday, and we'll say they were working in 4-hour shifts. You got 200 people working 4 hours a day minimum just looking.
You're going to find something if it's there.
For a full month.
Right?
Over a month. A month and a week. How about that? A month and a week.
Yeah, in March and April.
Yeah, so we have significant manpower that is out there doing this research, and nothing's coming up, and no answers being found.
No, still absolutely nothing. A company called Electronic Explorations Company even used a submarine to map and explore the bodies of water in the area. Still to no avail.
All right.
They found nothing in the water. All right, so what was found? as a result of the search party was the skeletal remains of a young girl who'd gone missing several weeks prior, but that is just sad and has nothing to do with cool heists.
No, that's just unfortunate timing.
Just thought I'd mention it. Let's forget it even happened, all right?
I mean, let's not forget that it happened, but we don't have to be, like, upset about it. We can try to think positive.
Yeah.
Maybe she was a bitch.
Maybe. Maybe we could just talk about the heists again.
Yeah, the heist of this girl's spirit.
Oh, God. That's the stupidest way you could describe murder. It's like, I heisted your soul.
That's exactly what happened, you know? I don't know. I don't fucking know.
I like it.
But, yeah, anyways.
All right, so, yeah, she's dead. The next best bet to possibly, find Cooper was to find and track the money that he was given. All right, it makes sense. It was this whole plan from the beginning.
Smart.
But even this had next to no results. Eventually, news outlets were allowed to publish the actual serial numbers of the bills Cooper was given, and even offered monetary rewards for any of the bills that matched. And the only thing to come out of this, all these offers of money and rewards, counterfeiters looking to scam the news.
Yeah,
all right,
that sounds about right.
So, that is until 1980. When a man raking a riverbank, to start a fire, he's kind of like clearing the area, he came across 3 bundles of cash. All right, and the bills were heavily deteriorated, but the FBI was able to confirm that they were indeed the bills that they'd given Cooper.
Oh,
all right?
Yeah.
And they were all in the same order that they once were. Crazy. So this caused like a whole new series.
Except
what?
There were 3. No, this is for real. There's 3 bundles of like 100 bills.
120s. Yeah, and there was some missing from one of them.
In the 3rd bundle, there was only 90. So there was.
Where's the cash?
290 bills were found out of a stack of what would be 300 bills.
Good Lord, what happened to that money?
Oh, it's interesting.
What happened to the money?
What's very interesting, even further about I know this is kind of getting into more like nitty gritty, but the money specifically they researched that money forever.
I got some crazy results that even just in 2020 they found some shit.
Yeah, and the money itself is a big key component, but really the meat and potatoes of the money argument being found is that. Research would show that it was not buried intentionally, or was it in the water anywhere near the time of the hijacking.
Yeah, that's one of the things I have. There was a bunch of tests run on the money, and it was concluded that the money hadn't even entered the water in the river until several months after the hijacking.
Yeah.
That was what they found in 2020. I don't know how they found that out. It was fucking crazy. But in any case, these 3 wads of cash are the only pieces of evidence surrounding the hijacking that were ever discovered outside of the plane.
Mm-hmm.
The only things. Sort of in the end, like the FBI announced on July 8th of 2016 that after 45 years, they were suspending the investigation to focus manpower on more pressing matters. And this case remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in history.
Yes.
To this day.
Yes, it very much does. It could. Nowadays, it really couldn't happen. I don't think, only because everything is so safeguarded with cameras and equipment and technology and air marshals and shit.
I mean, like this heist. No, is it a heist? It's piracy. I guess. I think it's a heist. But this actually did start the whole metal detectors and that kind of thing in airports, and then 9/11 just turned that up to 11.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now we're being scanned, full body scanned.
Yeah. So there's a few pieces of intriguing detail about the heist itself. So we're going to rewind for a moment and just kind of go over some of the grander scheme of things, okay?
Yeah.
So first off, why this specific plane on this specific day? Well, pretty much the only thing that we can generally agree on as far as people researching it and the actual FBI investigators is that D.B. Cooper was highly trained and highly knowledgeable of aircraft because, well, I shouldn't even say There are many specific reasons as to what leads them to think that. First and foremost, the plane itself. Nobody would have known this at that time. This was not well-known information. The plane specifically did not have an override button for the air stairs in the cockpit. The only model of its type that did not have that. So, was that just blind luck?
I mean, it could have been. Like, he had the flight attendant, like, show him how to use that.
Oh, yeah. But
you know
hold
what
on,
I mean?
hold on.
All right.
There's more.
That could have been playing dumb.
There's more to this. It is the only plane at that time in existence where the air stairs could be opened mid-flight without causing destruction to the plane. And specifically, the only reason that was that plane was because these were used during Vietnam to drop cargo and weapons and things of that nature while flying over.
Yeah.
And that specifically leads a lot of people to think maybe he wasn't some trained pilot, but he had knowledge of aircraft in some capacity.
Yeah, I did read like one theory where they were just like, it might be just like a paratrooper.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a lot of theories that go around that. Interestingly enough, the plane itself, as we've already talked about, it's strange that he would have this knowledge, you know?
Yeah, or it could be blind luck, who knows?
It very well could be.
I do know that after this happened, they did like modify all the planes so that you could not do that.
Right. No, yeah. Like
it was this event specifically that they were just like, no, we got to put a kibosh to that.
Yeah, no. You could never do that. It's very strange. I mean, there's a lot of technical things that go into planes that I am in no way aware of.
We're not pilots.
No. But it's weird because this is one of the planes. This is another interesting detail. It's one of the very few planes that you could jump out of and not be in the exact trail of exhaust, which could cause
death,
many problems.
Yeah, a lot of things could go wrong there.
There are 3 engines, but it couldn't be done in many other planes. Also, it had what's called a single point fueling capability. So it had all these different engines, right? But it could be rapidly fueled from one single point in the plane. So you didn't have to fill each tank. It would fill everything at once.
Oh, so that's probably why the fuel trucks, like, they had to get multiple ones because they weren't used to just, like, a single fuel to, like, doing all the engines at once. Interesting.
And, again, this is one of those details that at this time, I mean, this is just kind of conjecture. I'm not positive that this is true.
We don't know about anything. No one knows about this.
But I don't think that would have been common knowledge, especially among just fuel tanks, like fuel tanker guys.
Yeah, I'm a fuel tank, aficionado.
Like, you hear about planes, and they're like, we got to refuel this plane. It's like, well, I guess let's send a couple, because that's probably typically what we do,
Yeah.
And it was one of the only planes of its kind at that time that could fly at such a low, it's a low height. That's not like the right word I'm looking for. Altitude, thank you. It could fly at such a low altitude at a low speed without danger of the engine stalling out.
Yeah, and that was the specific request of him. He's like, you need to fly this as slow as you can at this specific altitude. And if you go, like, they were, like, if they went any slower than the way that they were going, they would have stalled out.
Right.
Like, that's how fucking slow.
And kind of going back to what we said, even the flight crews were not made aware of these details. So the thing about the air stairs, the engines, the fueling, this was not common knowledge for the flight crews, other than maybe the pilots, because it was something that they deemed as we would never have to do that.
Yeah.
Even in an emergency situation, we would like land the plane. We wouldn't.
Yeah, and then those big
jump out.
Fun orange slides would come out.
Right. So obviously, this led people to think that he was some bigwig, possibly in the Air Force, possibly like Jake said, a paratrooper.
Yeah.
But they're going to go on record and assume that he was not a paratrooper, okay?
Who, the FBI?
And this is from Special Agent Larry Carr, who led
like
the
FBI.
investigation team from 2006 to 2016 when it was dissolved.
Yeah.
And this is what he thought. He suggested that D.B. Cooper was an aircraft cargo loader, not a paratrooper. Okay?
Very specific job.
And this is why. Because an assignment like that would have given him knowledge and experience in the aviation field, specifically with loading and unloading planes, because that's how they throw the cargo out of a flying aircraft, you know?
Yeah.
And he would also obviously know, the basics of parachuting, things like that, because that's, it's kind of what you need to know to do that.
Yeah, it's just a regular... It's like knowing CPR if you work in food,
Mm-hmm. So, this is where he comes to the conclusion that it would have given him just enough knowledge to be able to do something like this, not necessarily the whole heist, but to be able to get himself out of a moving plane safely.
Yeah.
Now, this guy, this special agent, he does not believe that D.B. Cooper survived.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that. It's like sort of just like an overarching theory that a lot of people just keep going back to, is that he probably just died immediately, and like the money that you found was probably just, it fell out of his hanging corpse in some tree into a river or some shit.
Right. But that's all well and good, right? We can understand the basics of like jumping out of a plane isn't simple.
It's not simple, nor do I recommend it.
But that certainly does not explain the fact that the money was found years later, seemingly moved or purposefully handled.
It seems like, I mean, it's difficult to say because, like, I don't know, like money can just kind of float loose from a bundle of money, but also the fact that they ran tests on it and it wasn't. It was revealed that it wasn't in the water until months after the heist.
Right.
That's the only thing that I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and that's what makes it so fucking weird, because it's hard to describe. Obviously, we don't understand what happened to that money. There's no trail. We don't have any leads.
It hasn't resurfaced anywhere to this day. Like, none of that money, aside from what was found by the river, has ever resurfaced in the marketplace,
Yeah.
Anywhere.
So, it's a very strange situation. Now, obviously, we have tons of suspects. There's people that have been suspected forever. Interesting. I'll just read some of the names. I mean, I don't want to sit here and go through each and every one of them because there's not enough evidence to even support that they are remotely linked, because if they were, there'd be way more questioning done on these people.
Yeah, I looked through a bunch of the possible suspects, and none of them really jumped out. The only reason I mentioned D.B. Cooper was because that journalist fucked his name up, and now D.B. Cooper is who we think it was.
Exactly.
But it's Dan.
So we have Kenneth Peter Christensen. How about that?
That's a good old American corn-fed name.
And this story, you might have seen this one circulating on the internet a few years back, because this is the one that I'm a little bit more familiar with. So what had happened, Lyle Christensen was watching a documentary about D.B. Cooper in 2003, okay?
Classic.
Sounds
like me this week.
Classic Lyle Christensen. And after viewing, he was convinced that his brother, Kenneth Peter Christensen, who had died in 1994, was the titular D.B. Cooper. Sorry, not Cooper.
I like Cooper but more.
So he kept going back and forth. The FBI wouldn't listen to him. They were kind of like, well, I mean, okay, but we don't really have any evidence.
You gotta believe me. My dead brother's a criminal. You gotta do something.
Yeah, so what he did, he contacted Nora Ephron, who was a filmmaker, and they were hoping to get a movie made about it and kind of get the case out there into the world again, get people excited about it. When that didn't pan out, he contacted a private investigator in New York City named Skip Porteous.
Of course his name is Skip.
Yeah. And this is where they published the book about Kenneth being the possible DB Cooper. The following year, on the history, it was a history series called Brad Meltzer's Decoded. And what they did is they kind of linked a lot of the circumstantial evidence and made a little TV documentary about it. Okay,
it's kind of nice.
So a little background on him. Christensen was in the Army in 1944,
Jesus.
And he was a paratrooper. World War II was ended by the time he was deployed in 45, but he still would do like training jumps in Japan and stuff like that in the late 40s. After he left the Army, he joined what was called the Northwest Orient in 1954 as a mechanic. All right?
Okay, all right.
And then after that, he became a flight attendant. So he's been around planes his whole life.
He loves planes, it seems.
Mm-hmm. He was 45 years old at the time of D.B. Cooper's hijacking, but he was significantly shorter and skinnier than the eyewitness descriptions.
Okay, all right.
Significantly. Enough to where you could look at him and be like, that doesn't fit the profile.
He's like gaunt.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, God, eat.
So a lot of the circumstantial evidence, you want to hear what the circumstantial evidence is here?
I would love to hear what the circumstantial evidence is.
He loved smoking cigarettes.
Okay.
Just like D.B. Cooper was smoking a cigarette.
All right.
And his favorite drink was bourbon.
And soda.
The drink that D.B. Cooper had drank on the flight.
Those were the only things?
Yeah. People said that the photos of Christensen fit the memory of the hijacker's appearance. But they could not actually pin him down to doing it. After all this, the FBI has openly come out and said that there's no way that this is the guy. It just doesn't fit. They said there's no real connection in the eyewitness reports. All this evidence that they have is very ridiculous. I mean, yeah, you're a guy that grew up in roughly the same era as the hijacker, and you just so happen to smoke cigarettes and like bourbon and be into planes.
I think a lot of people who grew up during the 40s and 50s really liked cigarettes and bourbon.
Yeah.
I feel like that was just kind of like milk, coffee.
So there's a lot. I mean, there's more people. I'll give you some names here if you'd like to read more about it, the listeners out there. We have Jack Cuffelt. Lynn Doyle Cooper, L.D. Cooper.
Oh.
Then we have Barbara Dayton.
A woman? Why? What?
Well, what had happened was Barbara was actually born under a different name, Robert. And after the war in 1969, had undergone gender reassignment surgery.
Wow, but back in the day, I didn't know that even happened back then.
And the thing that really throws them off, at least of this specific trail, is that the gender reassignment surgery was previous to the hijacking, and they're like, "There's no way." Like they couldn't fuck up the details that bad. You know what I mean? That's what they're thinking. Obviously, there's not like a ton of evidence to support it.
Yeah, I
anyway.
can't imagine she was like taking tea to where she was like getting the features over a span of time. But
right. Then we got John List, Ted Mayfield, Richard McCoy Jr., Sheridan Peterson, Robert Rackstraw, Walter R. Recca, William J. Smith, Dwayne L. Weber. How about all that?
Nice. They're all D.B. Cooper in my book.
Yeah, and there was a video that surfaced, and I tried to find it, but I don't have enough details to go on it. I believe it was the first guy I was talking about, Christensen.
Yeah.
I think it was part of their story, and on the flip side of that, I was watching some of their videos, and there was another one unrelated to Christensen, where a private team of investigators had thought that they got D.B. Cooper. They knew who he was, and they talked to this old gentleman. And the old guy, they were asking him questions. They're like, "Do you know who D.B. Cooper is?" And he pretty much was like, "Stop fucking talking to me. Like, get away from me."
Oh yeah, you said his face just went like immediately like stoic, and he was like, "Get out of here."
Yeah, so
Like,
it's
leave.
weird. Again, that's just as circumstantial of evidence. Like, first off, that guy could be just lying or joking. Maybe he knows the story.
Maybe he just hates people talking to him.
Yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to be bothered. I don't know. Like, there's a lot that goes into that detail.
Dude, when you're that old and people start talking to you about stuff you don't want to talk about, you just have a pass. You're like, all right, we're going to talk about what I like, or you're going to fucking leave. You know?
Yeah. In 1976, there was a big issue that came up with this case. And the issue was that the statute of limitations was about to be reached.
Yeah.
And they, after a lot of discussion and a lot of, back and forth, they realized, like, the statute of limitations, it's very different for each case. But they ultimately decided that no matter what happens, throughout the perpetuity of time, if any information were to come out about D.B. Cooper that was substantial, the statute of limitations would not apply. So that
Really?
goes for even to today. If there were evidence to support that we had the guy, we knew who he was, that it wouldn't,
Man, that's so weird.
yeah.
Because, like, if you think about it, like, this really didn't hurt anyone. Like, he like, there were no injuries, no deaths. I mean, maybe him, but that's beside the point. Like, no one was negatively affected by this. And that seems like a very harsh punishment for...
Yeah.
Like, if they find him.
Well, and that's the one thing that I really, really want to just... the thing that grabs my perspective and makes me shape my whole thought process on this is the fact that all these investigators claim that there's no way he would have survived, right? That's what they say?
Yeah.
That is what every investigator says when they know they can't get an answer to the question. It's the same thing that happened to the Alcatraz individuals that escaped. Like, there's no way they could have lived, and then years later, abundant proof came out that they did survive.
Yeah. That even kind of happened with the BTK. After he went silent, he, like, went into hiding for, like, 8 years to raise his kids. They were just like, oh, he's probably, like, in jail or dead.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, well, no.
And here's my counter offer to this. The people that think he did not survive the events of that day. How could you pull off such a grand heist extremely successfully? I mean, no injuries, no casualties, no damage to anything other than just money in your pocket.
Yeah, he did cut up that parachute. You probably can't use that parachute anymore.
No, he probably can't. But why would we assume that someone that successful and that well planned out and thought out person wouldn't be able to get out of there, or at least make an attempt to?
Yeah, I can't imagine he would, like, make that plan so specifically and well, and then just the last ultimate thing he does, which is jumping out of the plane, he's like, all right, I have no plan for after this.
Yeah, we're just going to see what happens. We're going to try to just get out of here.
It's probably Switzerland. You probably just put it all in there.
Yeah, and to me, that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying he's alive right now.
Oh, he's probably real dead.
Forever. But I would 100% be willing to bet that D.B. Cooper, or whatever the fuck we want to call him, he survived that day.
I think he
did.
Why not? He's probably, yeah, like you said, he's probably dead now. It was like 50 years ago. They said he was in his 40s.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. There's older people in the world. But still, if he's not dead yet, he's on his way out.
Yeah, he's close. He's closing in. He's running down that timer.
Yeah.
But the whole story of this it's really crazy. I mean, this guy goes into a fucking plane, demands, not even asking, demands money.
But he's also being real nice.
Yeah, he's not like a dick.
He's tipping the waitresses, or not, flight attendants, I'm sorry if that was disparaging.
He's not ruffling any feathers.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything.
He's like, he was looking out the window at one point. He was like, oh, the city looks beautiful from up here. He was just talking like that.
And then,
wearing sunglasses, so cool.
This is how you know for a fact this dude was not like a crazy psychopath.
What?
When they landed the plane, like initially,
Yeah.
That's all the proof you need that this dude did not go in there with the intention of hurting anybody. His intention was purely this is the plan. I'm getting the money. We're
Yeah.
getting the fuck out.
No, I'm convinced that the suitcase just had a bunch of wieners in it.
Oh, I would 100%
Just a bunch of
buy
ballpark wieners with a bunch of wire that he got at the hardware store.
that. No, you're definitely...
And a battery. Just a battery.
We completely agree on that, because a guy this well thought out and this calculated would not need to bring a bomb. Like, he just wouldn't, because
No.
that
That
wasn't
would probably,
the end game.
That would honestly probably be detrimental to his plan, because he's like, there's nitroglycerin in these fucks.
Right.
I can't risk that.
I would be
you know?
willing to venture a guess and say that in Dan Cooper's mind during the events, like leading up to that day and on that day, the intention was not only to never hurt anybody, but instead of dying, he would probably have rather been caught.
Yeah.
And not for the fame or the fortune, but simply for the fact that a guy that's not willing to hurt or even take hostage individuals is definitely thinking about his life.
Yeah.
And the after effects of what would come from that event.
Yeah.
You know?
Dude, a lot of people did copycat sorts of things like immediately after. Like there was a rash, like not a rash. Is that a good word for it?
That's a rash of sky pirates.
A rampant rash of sky pirates. Yeah, it just emerged at like in the years afterward, and it was only after they beefed up like the security at the airports, like a little baby version of what we got today. That I'm burping a lot today. It kind of stopped, you know.
Yeah, and this is where I'm not trying to paint Dan Cooper as like a good guy. Obviously, he's doing some villainous things, but it really could have gone a very different way many a time, to be honest. And I think the prime example, and I know that this can go either way, so it's important to point out both sides. The fact that he never entered the cockpit while the pilots were in there was, a lot of people use that as he was afraid that he would be overpowered by the pilots. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's more he didn't want anything to escalate. Like, he was comfortable where he was at.
In a way, those two things are the same, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, like, I feel like it was definitely on purpose. He was in the back, so he could see anyone coming that was from the front, and he could be like, I have this bomb, and I can do whatever I'm going to do with it to make it go off before you get to me. So it was definitely on purpose. Like, he probably was afraid of confrontation in that sense.
And that's what, to me, I think it's important to understand that if you're afraid of being in that confrontation, you're not mentally equipped or physically equipped to kill individuals that would get in your way.
Yeah.
And that was not his MO, because he very easily could have killed like 100 people if he felt like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This guy was like Walter White season 1.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean? Like he's like on the verge of criminality, but he's not like comfortable with killing people quite yet. You know what I mean?
No, I think that's an excellent comparison. It's like he's smart. He's definitely dabbling in the underbelly of society, but in a way that's unique and almost impossible to track.
He's the one who knocks.
For right now, he 100% is. And it's... I personally do not think that he died on that day. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he survived.
I'm going to say it's about 80% he lived, 20% maybe he just fucking, right into the riverbank.
Yeah, you never know.
Who knows?
I mean, things can happen.
Hanging from a tree, maybe the money fell out after a squirrel got curious.
And yeah, it's just, everything about it is very mysterious. And I'm pretty confident in saying that we're not going to get any answers now, because crime shows, magazines, the news, everybody wants to go out and tell you that we have all this technology and we can go back into cold cases and find things we never found. While we may have very smart detectives that are capable of, connecting the dots, you'll never get a definitive answer because it's just too far away.
Well, you can never really get a definitive answer, but you can definitely take leaps and bounds like towards one.
Like we can definitely, even the Zodiac.
Educated assumptions. The Zodiac, even Dietlef Pass.
Yeah, like we have ideas, but there's never going to be a perfect answer or something that I think will ever be generally accepted.
Yeah, I mean, like even that very recent thing, those like independent investigators they were just like, we know who the Zodiac is. me and you were both just like, it's probably bullshit.
Yeah,
I
don't
just
believe
immediately
it.
like.
I don't believe it, and maybe it's a sense of like bias of like you enjoy the mystery of it all, but I think a good portion of it is there's no, just because what we have now technologically, it doesn't mean that we can go back in time and use our technology on that.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, dude, I was talking to Carlton about this today, the Dietlef Pass incident.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember, like, I think it was a couple weeks or something after we did that episode, there was some scientists who were just like, they literally applied the physics of the snow in the movie Frozen to the mountain because it was so accurate to how snow actually interacts with, like, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they figured out, like, just something new. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were just like, yeah, this is totally possible that they were just buried.
Yeah.
You know?
You never know.
It's insane.
And that's essentially Dan Cooper.
That's Dan Cooper, not DB, but it is DB Cooper.
Dan
But it's
balls
not.
out Cooper.
Yeah.
How about that?
How about that? He was up there in the sky.
But yeah, we this was it's an interesting take because it's something very off the beaten path of what we would typically do. I'd say it's more of like it's a crime, but it's not like a violent crime.
This is just a guy going skydiving with a lot more monetary cargo than usual.
It's sort of like it's a mysterious history. All right.
It's like if someone skydove with like 13 Rolexes.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh,
You know?
what the fuck?
And he was like, oh, this is my name, but it wasn't his name.
It's one of those history mysteries. That's what we're going to be calling the episodes like this.
And let's combine those. History.
No.
Or
No.
maybe it's mystery.
Neither of the two.
Everyone's picturing how I think it's spelled.
No.
Everyone is.
No.
Grant!
No.
I know it's March. You're very combative.
No. Yes. Anyways.
Yeah.
That was our episode for this week. We will be back. We're going to be doing, it hasn't even been storyboarded yet, but it's just going to happen.
It's going to be like a series of loosely related things.
The best way to describe this, I don't know, for movie people out there, you know, like the Shaun of the Dead movie, it's like a trilogy of movies that came out.
It's like, it's Shaun of the Dead, what is it, Hot Fuzz?
And yeah, this is the end, the bar one. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Isn't the bar one Shaun of the Dead?
No, it's At World's End. That's what it is.
Oh.
Wait, let me look that up.
Wait.
I know that's fucking...
That might be a different thing in my mind. But
that's Pirates of the Caribbean
nothing.
for sure. But it's got to be something else. I'm going to figure this out.
Then this is it. Isn't that all those celebrities playing themselves and there's a giant, like, demon monster with a big dick?
Yeah. I'm gonna figure this out.
Right.
I've only seen that movie once.
It sucks when we have to research a comparison we're making.
It's The World's End.
World's End.
But yeah, that's the trilogy of movies. They're nowhere near related, but they're extremely loosely based on the idea of like mystery, kind of supernatural, scary, funny.
Yeah.
We're gonna be doing our own kind of version of that over the course of the next couple weeks. It might take a minute.
It might be over a month.
Yeah, it's going to be a minute, but it's going to be very interestingly topical / historical / it's going to have everything you want.
Yeah, there's going to be bullets. There's going to be people screaming.
Yeah, that is true. There's going to be talks of the government. There's going to be talks of laws and rules and regulations.
Bullies and people who aren't bullies that are labeled bullies, and then, they're dead.
And yeah, combat veterans and completely unrealistic outputs that were put out by the news.
Yeah,
I think you guys will love it.
Yeah.
It's something that, as far as I'm aware, is not a arc as far as stories go that is super out there right now. So it's kind of new and not new, but it's refreshing to hear.
We're trying to break new ground.
Yeah, so you guys are definitely going to enjoy it. But we will start that next week with a brand new episode on Friday. So I hope you guys will love it.
We'll also be back on Thursday for the Patreon.
Yeah, we will. That's what we do. We're
the
here.
Patreon, we love you guys. You should go there. You can listen to all our stuff, and we'll send you a shirt. All right, there's a link below for that. Also, you can follow us on all the shit because we are starting a cult. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And startacult@gmail.com. Send us a picture of your hair.
Do it.
Yeah, maybe your hair, whether it's spelled with the A-R-E or A-I-R, either one. And we're also on YouTube. Like and subscribe there.
Yes. Enjoy your next week. Possibly some nicer weather, depending on what parts of the world you're in.
Who knows?
Maybe
It's
worse
warming
weather.
up.
I don't know what's happening by you
Warming
guys.
up.
But we will certainly be back next week to talk. Final little Easter egg for you. We'll be talking about a pretty much strictly American problem. For the next
Very
couple
much
weeks.
so.
So, we'll be back. We love you guys very much. Have a great one.
It's true. Mitch just farted. I think Grant just farted.
I did.
Oh, God. If I try to fart, I'm going to poop my pants.